Well, today we asked you to send in your questions and concerns on coronavirus, and we have been overwhelmed by your responses. So let's bring in infectious diseases physician Sanjaya Senanayake. Hi, nice to see you this evening. Sanjaya, loads of questions for you. So we're going to kick off with one from Brody in Cobar, New South Wales, who asks if people with autoimmune diseases are still considered high risk if they're not taking any immunosuppressant drugs. I'll get that out. What's your answer for Brody?
Okay, so when we talk about immunosuppression, we mean that someone's immune system is low, either naturally because of a disease like common variable immunodeficiency, or because they have an autoimmune condition and they've been given medicines to deliberately lower their immune system. Now, there are some autoimmune conditions, so say psoriasis, for instance, which at its most basic is a skin condition where you get white plaques on different parts of the body. If you're just using topical therapy for that, it's highly unlikely to be an issue. And in general with COVID-19, it hasn't definitively been proven that immunosuppressive illness or an immunosuppressive state is associated with a bad outcome, but we know that is the case with a lot of other respiratory infections. Therefore, we would assume it is the case with COVID-19.
Sanjaya, good evening. This one came to us on Twitter. Ryan wants to know how New Zealand's cases compare to Australia after they implemented the full lockdown. We know the deaths are down, but does that tell the full story?
Yeah, sure, Matt. So New Zealand put in their level 4 restrictions, which are slightly tighter than what we're seeing in Australia, probably about 2 weeks ago. And if we look at the case numbers now, they've got about 1,300 cases. We've got about 6,200. But per head of population, it's fairly similar. It's about 1 case per 4,000 head of population. Both case fatality rates in New Zealand and Australia are under 1%, although ours has crept up to 1%. New Zealand's really good with the testing, about 6,000 tests per million people. We're even better, 10,000 tests per million people. So overall, if you look at the epidemic curves as well, New Zealand is still going up. It hasn't quite peaked, but in Australia, we're just starting to peak. So we're doing a bit better from that point of view. But both countries overall are seeing a general reduction in the number of confirmed cases.
Okay, one from Robin here asking if more people die of the flu than coronavirus, and how do the two compare?
Right. So with influenza, we say the case fatality rate is about 0.1%, and there's a fairly broad range in terms of deaths attributed to flu every year, because we think there are people who maybe die from heart attacks, etc., but it would have been precipitated by flu, so it's hard to work out the exact number, but say on average about 600,000 people a year die from influenza. Now, we've had 100,000 deaths so far that we know of from COVID-19, and there's a long way to go in this outbreak. So it may well be that COVID-19 is more deadly than influenza, but we're yet to see. But the death rate suggests 0.1% for influenza, closer to 1% for COVID-19.
Kerry has written to us on Facebook. It's a simple one, but it's a good one. She's asked whether if people who live together can hold hands in public.
Yeah, sure. And the Prime Minister talked about the whole family can go out together, taking a dog for a walk. So I think of a family unit who are living together, eating together, etc., being a single infection unit. So I see no problem with a couple who live together holding hands in public. So the take-home message: hold hands in public, maybe kiss in private.
There's a Valentine's card, isn't it? Will you be my single infection unit? I've got a question from Sally in Victoria, and she says, can glasses protect us from the virus? Like the way a mask does, can glasses do the same?
So it's a good question from Sally. Now, as we know, we can get infected by contaminating 3 parts of our body with this virus: the mouth, the nose, and the eyes. And a mask, if a mask is being used appropriately, it will cover the nose and the mouth, but it won't protect the eyes. So certainly glasses will provide some protection. And in fact, if you look at the official personal protective equipment requirements when looking after a COVID-19 patient in hospital, we generally recommend eyewear along with a mask, so a face shield or goggles.
Sanjaya, you're like a living, breathing Google. I'm not convinced you've ever encountered a question that you can't answer, but here's one final one for you. This is from Karen in New South Wales. She wants to know how significant the risk is for hairdressers being in such close proximity. Of course, we know there's that 30-minute limit and they're quite stressed naturally about this.
Yes, no, it's a good question. And look, I got my hair cut today. So
looks good too, if you don't mind me saying.
Oh, no, not at all, thank you. Can we leave the interview there then? No. No. But you've brought up a very salient issue in that if you have more than 15-minute face-to-face contact with someone who ends up developing COVID-19 or who has COVID-19, you'd be considered a close contact and be quarantined. Yeah. So it is really important for your hairdresser not to cut hair if they are sick, and similarly us as clients to have a duty not to go to the hairdressers while we're sick, because there is a risk, absolutely.
It's it's good advice, and they have modified that law with regards to the 30-minute limit as well. But it's a stressful time for all hairdressers, as it is for all essential workers at the moment. Thank you, Sanjaya.